You may remember Todd Chilton, the Oakland, Maine police officer practicing land surveying without a license.
If anything, looking at this, geez, that shed's even on your property then, isn't it?
Let's take the tour that Officer Chilton was unable to give you. We begin our tour of the Scott property at the pin on the lake shore. Note the red circle at the top of the map. Here is the corresponding monument on the lake shore. The little white post and chain fence on the left is the property line between the Scott and Prelgavisk properties. Notice how narrow the Scott property is by the lake, whereas the Prelgavisks have over 100 feet of lakefront property. The property line is very close to their cottage. That is because a previous owner had built the cottage on the Scott property, and Mr. Scott sold them exactly what they needed to have the building located on their property. The sliver of land is what was left after selling the encroaching neighbor what she needed, and creating 4 house lots with the minimum required square footage. Here is the pin that was placed in 1972, and was found 106 feet from the pin at the lake shore, and 2 feet underground. The Prelgavisk's surveyor Robert Knowlton claimed to have located this marker and informed Mr. Prelgavisk that this was his boundary corner when he purchased the property in 2013. The deed called for a marker approximately 100 feet away. So what is the problem? Why is Mr. Knowlton now arguing for a different boundary corner? A boundary corner 22 feet further away. Notice that the deed describes the marker as having been placed by the edge of a road. Why wasn't this pin found by the edge of the road, but rather what appears to be the middle of the road? The answer can be found in the modifications that the Prelgavisks made to the Scott property. Notice that the large rocks previously sat in front of the guy wire. The Prelgavisks cut all the trees, moved the large rocks, and added gravel to the area. Moving the large rocks and adding gravel changed the previously travelled path. Therefore, the marker now appears as if it were not placed at the edge of the road. It would seem that the travelled path of a gravel road may migrate over the years. So why was Mr. Knowlton so determined to relocate the corner monument? The truth is, he wasn't always that eager. He stated that there was someone else that was trying to make that argument, and that he wasn't sure he was prepared to support what they wanted. Even though Mr. Knowlton was informed of a 1939 aerial photograph and these photographs that show the location of the original road, he did not utilize them. Even worse, the deed specifically described the parcel as a rectangle 20 feet by 100 feet. Here you can see the strange shape produced by Mr. Knowlton's assumptions. The longest dimension is almost 129 feet in length, and it certainly does not form a rectangle. So, exactly whose argument was Mr. Knowlton attempting to make? Here we have Judy Metcalf, attorney for the Prelgavisks. She spent a long time at the property with Mr. Knowlton, and in this video, it would appear that he is trying to make some specific arguments. Judy also has close ties to the president of the Road Association, the woman who is desperate to show that the Scotts don't own any roads that the association maintains. Judy's opinions regarding what the Scotts own and do not own were expressed in a letter to the Scotts well before Mr. Knowlton undertook a survey. The results of the survey that he had not yet done were being discussed for months prior. Of course, Miss Metcalf had concerns that her client's shed straddled another property. It took a fair bit of tinkering, but Mr. Knowlton drew the road on the ground in the only place where there has never been any gravel. And he did not like the monument he found, so he placed another one a few feet away and simply ignored a third one. Now, as if by a miracle, their shed is on their own property. Wow, this is so much cheaper than going to court. So is walking into a store and just taking what you want without paying. But is it right? Is it ethical for your attorney to pressure a surveyor into producing a survey that is to your benefit, to the detriment of your neighbor, ignoring the basic principles of surveying? What if you have the money or power to do anything you want? Is it the right thing to do just because you can? Next up, join us for a review of all the shoreline zoning violations in the neighborhood and find out what the town of Oakland has done about them. Once again, reporting from Oakland, Maine.